Hello and good afternoon, good morning, or good night, wherever it is that you are watching this from, whether you're going to join me live here today, Wednesday, February the 16th, 2 days after Valentine's Day. How appropriate for this topic. And I'm coming here live just about 12:15 here p.m. Mountain Standard Time. So if you are watching me live and as you join in, please feel free to let me know that you're watching, give me a wave or say hello. And if you're watching this on the replay, as always, I ask that you just type in replay into the comments so that I know you've watched it. And welcome. So I am Julie. Most of you know me. Julie, I am a certified personal trainer, a certified nutrition coach, and a hormone-based fitness specialist. And I have been blessed to have spent over 30 years now, 31 to be exact, working with women of all fitness levels, backgrounds, ages, and stages with regards to their health and fitness. So welcome. I hope that we may get some people joining me here live. If not, that's fine. I know most people tend to watch us on the replay anyway. So there we go. I am live. This is good. So today, everybody, I am going to be sharing and talking about the title of today's Wednesday live webinar, which is Breaking Sugar Addiction. Now, just off the top of your head, how many of you watching would go as far as saying that you do struggle with a certain amount of addiction to sugar? Raise your hand or type me in the comments if that is you. And there's nothing to be ashamed about because with today's fast-paced go society, so much of what we eat and just buy, cook with, bake with, is loaded with added sugars. All right. So the more whole you eat, the less that tends to affect you. But when you are starting to rely on some of those quick fixes, made for you foods, you may be going into sort of excess sugar territory. We'll talk about all this here as I go through today's presentation. So stay with me as well. I'm going to talk about, we're going to start with a little bit of a sugar quiz to find out how many of what I'm going to share with you you can relate to. Okay. So if you are watching, following along, watching the live, quickly get something that, piece of pen and a paper, something that you can write down or check off from the sugar quiz. I'm just about to share that with you, or just to take notes throughout. Okay. And then at the very end, I'll share with you details about the Breaking Sugar Addiction program, which I will be launching and which will be available to begin Monday, February the 21st. Okay. So if you are watching live, hi, Tracy. I see that you're there with me. By all means, feel free to let me know where you are at, who you are, and if you're watching the replay, type replay in the comments. So let me start by sharing my screen, and I would like to share some questions with you. Let me just find I just want to find my sugar addiction checklist here for you. I'll get that, and then we can, here we go. So I'm going to share this screen. All right. So let's go through this sugar addiction checklist together, okay? So what I want you to do is, as I read these out or as you read them yourself, I want you to check off how many relate to you, okay? Do you have a tough time saying no to sweets and desserts? Do you experience cravings when you try to cut down your sugar intake or carbohydrates? Do you think about sugary foods during the day and evening? When you start to eat sweets, do you find it difficult to stop? And that is, of course, the opposite of super easy to put away and not think about, okay? Do you get a rush of energy after eating sweets, but then crash and feel hungry pretty quickly after you do so? Do you often feel guilt or shame after eating sugary treats? Donuts, cookies, cakes, what have you? Do you reward yourself with sugary food or drinks? Do you overeat sugary foods or processed carb type foods when you are stressed? Do you have memories of feeling loved or cared for that are all connected to sweets, cakes, pies, sugars, cookies, you name it? Would you agree that you can't seem to get enough sugar when you start eating sweets, but crave more? Now, I want you to go through that list and check off how many might apply to you. If you want to copy that list, reach out, let me know. If you checked 3 or more, so if you answered yes to 3 or more, you may have a problem with sugar. Making healthy nutrition and lifestyle changes will absolutely benefit your health and hormones. All right. So I'll talk more about my Breaking Sugar Addiction program starting here next Monday. But there you go. I'm going to share my screen again here. I'm going to stop sharing. So curious to know, if you felt like sharing, how many of you had 3 or more yeses to that sugar addiction quiz? And let me just pull that up here again for you guys, in case as I'm speaking you want to go through it, if you're late to the replay or late to the live. Here we go. So there's the sugar addiction checklist. All right. If you answer 3 or more, you may have an issue with sugar addiction. And like I said, when I kicked off this presentation, it is often, a lot of it these days, due to the way that our society is built, with quick foods, with fast foods, with a lot of highly processed foods, quite often disguised as health foods. So make no mistake, ladies, just because a label tries to tell you something is healthy or low sugar, whatever, what have you, does not mean it's good for you. Okay, there are a lot of junk foods, for lack of a better word, masquerading out there as health foods. Okay, so although I like to say that no food is inherently good or bad, I will say that, of course, absolutely, the more whole foods we can eat, the better our diet will be overall. Whole food nutrition is where it is at for all the good things that it does. So let's move on. So there's the sugar addiction checklist. If you're still watching, tally up how many of those that you can relate to. But maybe you know somebody, maybe a friend, maybe one of your kids, maybe a family member, a colleague suffers. You know, the kind of person you always see with the Coke, 3 cans of Coke a day, or always with the candies, right? Or always with the jelly beans. You know, feel free to share this information with that person, because we are going to be offering that program here starting on Monday of next week. Okay, so I'm going to start sharing that. And now I'm going to take you into the actual program. Okay, so I'm going to take you into today's workshop, Breaking Sugar Addiction. Let me just share that screen for you. And if you are watching me live, guys, please feel free to say hi. Let me know. I see a few of you here who are joining me. And you can always watch this on the replay. So there we go. Now I've got our Breaking a Sugar Addiction workshop up here on the screen. All right, so follow along with me as I explain. So food addictions, sugar addictions can lead to obesity and complications such as diabetes and high blood pressure. Just a little did you know here that when there's a lot of research out there that is starting to look at what are some of the pre-existing factors that help all of these diseases, you know, whether they're viruses, bacteria, diseases, non-communicable or otherwise, flourishing, proliferating. There is so much research that is pointing to high levels of sugar and pre-diabetic states of being in the health of those who are suffering and, you know, experiencing so much of these diseases. So I just want you to be aware that if there's one thing that you can do, one of the only things that you can do, it would be to take a close, hard look at how much sugar you are ingesting. And if, be honest with yourself, if you need to take it back a little or you are addicted, now is the time to switch it. Okay. Unfortunately, though, when people think about their health as it relates to food, they rarely tend to think of sugar as being the core issues. We hear about, you know, burgers, high fat, you know, red meat, but we don't tend to hear sugar a lot. And, you know, a dozen or so years ago, I used to run a lot of sugar workshops and people were astounded. Ladies, I literally could show you pages and pages of names that sugar goes by. Okay. You think changing your last name is a big deal? Sugar can change its name hundreds of times so that it can hide from you. But a sugar is a sugar is a sugar. And so I want you to think, you know, sugar as an addiction is even less talked about, yet it's still there. You know, even a lot of wine, a lot of sugar. Okay. So if you are concerned about yourself or a family member, that sugar addiction may be a core cause of some other issues, metabolic issues, okay, inflammation issues, maybe autoimmune issues, gut health issues, lack of being able to lose weight or burn fat or visceral belly fat increases, consider sharing that with them. Okay. So here are some things to consider about what sugar addiction really is. Just pop that on pause here. So we'll talk about the brain versus food. So sugar can cause our brain to have a large release of dopamine. That's that feel good hormone, okay? Dopamine works with the regulators in your brain. And when large amounts are released, these regulators are dulled. Okay, they become kind of anti-resistant. Okay, this means that it takes more and more sugar to get the same feelings as the first time. So, whereas a small cupcake may have been enough for you, over time, it may take two or more to give you that same feeling. So, tune in to being very mindful of your experience, okay, your relationship with those sugary types of food. And again, going back to the sugar quiz, that can give you good clues as to your relationship with this, going way back years and years. Okay, how do you perceive sugar? What do you relate it to? Is it a source of treats, right? It's a reward for you. Just some things to think about. Now, it also gives us false energy. It can give us a sense of having energy, like you would get from an energy shot, okay, or natural energy. But the truth is, it is false energy. Sugar gives your body a rush that allows it to get a small boost. When that boost is gone, you might have what's known as the sugar crash. This crash can leave you feeling tired. It can leave you feeling tired along with having a migraine or a lightheadedness or mild headache. Okay. This crash is hard to get over. And in some cases, for some people, depending on how extreme it is, can leave you with no alternative but to end your day and get some rest. You're on the couch or in your office, door closed, crashed out. Okay. Now, I will also say I wanted to talk about a couple things. I want to go back to brain versus food. Now, let's talk about wine. I'll share a personal story about how years ago I started off drinking the occasional glass of wine. That then turned into, more often than not, a bottle of wine. Then that wasn't enough. That often, more often than not, turned into one bottle wasn't enough. I needed the second bottle, and so on and so on. Okay. I've been very, very, very public about my experience and relationship with wine. So I'm not going to hide that. No longer is the case. But this works similar to what I spoke about on the brain versus food. So you have a little bit, it's not enough. You need more, then it's not enough. You need more, then it's not enough. So I want you to be honest with yourself and that relationship. And then, of course, the false energy, no different. So let's move on to overstimulation. Sugar addiction causes an overstimulation of our system, okay, of our nervous system, our hormonal system, the whole thing. And of course, as I've explained before, as a quick Coles Note version, when you, let's say, eat a big cookie, you've got insulin. Insulin is released and it goes, it wants to take all the glucose, right? Breaks down that cookie, energy breaks down into glucose. The insulin's job is to take that, funnel it into the muscles and into the brain. Okay, but when we are in a state of insulin resistance, meaning our insulin can no longer do the job because it's the key that goes into the cell, unlocks it, and lets the sugar go in, it's full. It's overwhelmed. The key does no longer work. Okay, that's insulin resistance. Then we run into more problems because insulin isn't doing its job. We've got all this sugar going not where it needs to be, but in other areas. Remember, visceral fat, the fat in and around your organs. Okay. So that can be a big, big problem. All right. So I just wanted to review that. If you want more on that, go back to my How to Shed Belly Fat series, parts 1, 2, and 3. You can find that on my YouTube channel. But it'll cause an overstimulation of our system. Okay. It could cause our body to have a reaction that makes us feel jumpy or anxious. Now look at kids. Perfect example. Anyone that says sugar doesn't affect kids, I don't know where they're getting their information from. But this can at first be confused with just being excited or energetic. The problem is you need to have more and more sugar to get that same reaction. I can relate with the wine, more and more to get that reaction. What's wine predominantly made of? It's the sugar. Okay. So this ties directly to the release of the dopamine and how more than your brain reacts to it. So that's all good. And so, but let's move on. So we talked about what it does, overstimulation, false energy, brain versus food. I want to talk now about the dangers, okay, of being addicted to sugar. So you may think sugar addiction is something that only has side effects such as obesity, okay, weight gain. The truth is, there are many other dangers related to being addicted to sugar. These dangers can cause a variety of health issues in our daily lives. For women in perimenopause and menopause, this can most notably be related to hormone imbalance and insulin resistance, as I mentioned, which can lead to type 2 diabetes. In fact, you might not even realize what foods are sources of the sugar that are kind of fueling that sugar addiction that you might not even be aware of, to be honest. okay, or at the very least that are contributing to that. So here are a few dangers to consider, where the hidden sources may be located, and what we can do to reduce each risk. So first of all, let's talk about migraines. Now, of course, there are other reasons we can get a migraine. This is all about sugar today. When you eat a large amount of sugar, your brain reacts to that sugar. Not only does insulin, but so does your brain. This can cause a number of reactions, including energy bursts. So when this happens, your regulators, as I mentioned previously, are dulled over time. Okay, that means that you are not feeling the full effects of the sugar and what it is doing to your system. It also means that more and more sugar is needed over time to give you the energy you need or the reaction you once had. So when you do not have the amounts of sugar your body has now become used to, you may end up with a migraine headache. If you already get headaches, you might notice a severe increase in these headaches, or that the headaches are getting worse. Hypertension, another danger zone. Hypertension is a severe danger with a sugar addiction. This danger refers to the increased amount of high blood pressure in the system. So high blood pressure, as we know, can lead to heart attacks, strokes, circulation issues throughout the body. It can also cause our blood vessels to become smaller and narrower, which affects our entire body and the blood flowing through it. So by reducing just a small amount of sugar, for example, omitting sugary drinks, you can avoid this danger and reduce the risks. So great point. One of the good things you can do if you think you might be addicted to sugar, right? And a good way to know is imagine not having any. What's your initial instinct? To know wine, to know beer, to know highballs, to know cookies, to know cakes, to know white pasta or bread. What is your initial feeling? To not eating it? That's a clue. Okay. Let's also talk about metabolic issues. One of the dangers that most people do not consider are the effects sugar addictions can have on our metabolic system. These dangers can include fatty deposits in our cells that can cause problems with obesity, weight loss, and problems with the way certain cells function in our body. So going back to the last couple slides where I talked about that insulin resistance, okay, can no longer get into the cell to do its job because you know why? The cell is too full already. There's no room. We got to put that somewhere else. We get visceral fat. That can also, of course, include real obesity, fat under the skin, subcutaneous, but also visceral, and so much more. The fat in and around the organs is the more dangerous part that we really want to get a handle on. And again, if you need a refresher on that, go back to How to Shed Belly Fat, parts 1, 2, and 3, or let me know if you need the link there to that YouTube site, okay? And then insulin resistance. And there's another one I'll touch on after this. But as I explained again in that series and many other trainings, that an unwanted outcome of eating too much processed, refined foods and too much added sugar is that resistance. When those cells are overloaded, the insulin cannot do its job to take the glucose and shuttle it into the muscle, okay, and brain, thus leaving it around the organs and body tissues, can create weight gain, metabolic issues in the body, like I just discussed, headaches, you name it, okay? So it can also, of course, then interfere with sleep. And of course, sleep is so important. We know what happens when that is dysregulated. That can create more cravings, right? It's a vicious cycle, which can then have you eating more quick fix sugary foods. So take a second. If you're just joining me now, let me know. Give me a hello. If you have questions as I go through, please drop them in the comments. I'll have a peek before I end. If there are any questions or comments, and try to identify them or reach out to you. If you're watching a replay, guys, just write replay. And I'd love to know kind of what parts of today's presentation pop out at you. And again, if you want to know what those quiz questions were, all right, how to know if you have an addiction to sugar, we have that checklist, okay? And 3 more of those, probably a good idea that you do. And you might want to look at that. All right, so let's move on here to the next part of the presentation. All right, here we go. So the dangers of being addicted to sugar. It's going to kind of sound a little bit like a broken record, but I'm going to get into some of what we can do here right away. So let's say you're working on your diet, your healthy eating plan. You're doing well. You're working towards a healthy, clean eating diet. You're working towards some goals like, lifting heavier, or at that extent, just starting a resistance training program at all, which is positive. Maybe your goals are keeping your lean muscle, ensuring that your bone density stays up, improving your sleep and your energy, all these amazing things. But the problem is maybe you've been told by your nutritionist or your nutrition coach or your doctor that your sugar levels are still not in a good range. So you've removed soda. Let's say you've removed cookies and cakes, sweets. All right. And you're left wondering, where is the sugar coming from? Well, here are a few hidden sources, what you need to do to remove them. So we've got coffee drinks. That special coffee you're ordering through Starbucks, that can add up and be full. Those sugary syrups, full of added sugars. Okay. Pre-made juices, full of added sugars. And again, in the beginning of this, I said, beware of products trying to promote themselves as healthy. We're going to have to start reading labels. I'll get there in a minute. So you can understand exactly how much added sugar you might realistically be having in your diet when you're doing so well trying to keep it whole. All right. Another source, frozen dinners. And then another source, pre-made health drinks. Okay. So that's even like protein shake, ready-made protein shake drinks. I have clients ask me, well, what about this one? And the first thing I say is, read the label, how many grams of added sugars are in them. Okay. You don't need all of that. So let's talk about the stages of removing the sugars. Okay. So we want to remove known sugars. Now, I will say as a caveat here, we're talking about added sugars. We're not talking specifically about sugar from fruit, sugar from vegetables, sugar from whole foods. Okay. We're talking about, for the most part, added sugars. If you have an issue with this already, at that point, depending on your unique situation, if you do show signs of a sugar addiction, you may, for a time, want to reduce too much fruit, for example, until you can kind of get that in hand and then add fruit back in a more modified way. Fruit tends not to be such a harmful thing, all right, unless, of course, it's overdone or in combination with so much sugar that it tips you overboard. So the first step to removing sugars is to remove all the known sugars in your diet, the really obvious ones, the drinks, even the diet drinks that contain sugars, even the really extra harmful synthetic sweeteners, okay? Removing sugars that are unnecessary, even from things like, for example, a protein shake, okay, or a protein powder. Of course, cookies, cakes, all those things are very, very obvious. You want to remove processed foods that contain high sugar contents as well. You also want to remove known sugars from your diet. You can reduce the risks causing those health issues. And it might not be an issue right now, ladies. The scary part of it is you could be pre-diabetic, already experiencing insulin resistance and not be aware of it until you've been diagnosed with full-blown diabetes type 2. Okay, it's one of the biggest, fastest rising issues out there because of our super easy grab and go, high processed, lack of fresh, whole, alive food diet. Okay, so removing known sugars might seem like the easiest step, but it can be the hardest for some people, especially if you don't know what names sugar can call itself. Okay, you don't just look for sugar in the ingredients. It can be called many, many things. So start reading the label, okay? And I will say that for a woman, your goal is 24 grams or less of added sugars a day. So for example, let's say you have your morning coffee and you have, I'm going to pick on like the Silk Almond coffee sweetener. I want you to look at that label, all right? And look how many grams of sugar, and then read the label itself to find out all of the different ingredients. Those ingredients that are higher up in the top, like the first 3, first 5, have a higher concentration in that product. The ones closer to the end, not as much. So if sugar, for example, is one of the first couple ingredients, you bet it is loaded. And I want you to look at the serving size. So let's say you're like, oh, this only has 5 grams of sugar. Okay, good. So 5 grams, 24 minus 5, that gives you what? Another 19 grams of sugar. But let's say that serving size is this big, okay? And you know, realistically, you have that much of it. Let's say 4 times the serving size. That's 20 grams of added sugar right there, okay? So reading labels is important. And honestly, understanding that your goal, ladies, if you really, truly want to minimize inflammation, reduce the risks of too much sugar in your diet, hypertension, all those things, pre-diabetic state, insulin resistance, or pure diabetes. you really want to keep it 24 grams or less, okay, of added sugar. Just keep a little notepad, start to record it. Pretty soon it'll become common and you'll be able to know, lots of added sugar. Okay, so there, I'm having this big, massive diet or donut. There's my sugar for the day. But then you arm yourself with knowledge. So once you've removed the sugary drinks, and honestly, this is a needle mover, just simply removing sugary drinks, making sure that all the liquid you put in your body has no sugar is a huge step for so many people. And that is going to include 0-calorie fake sugars. That's a topic for another day, but just know that. Okay. So I want to remove sugar, calorie drinks. That's a huge step. And then all the other obvious things. So once we do remove that, be aware. Okay. And if you do participate and decide to take advantage of the Breaking a Sugar Addiction program that's starting next Monday, there is an early bird rate out. I'll get there. But if you do take advantage of that, I will be helping you through this. We'll talk more about it. But there is a detoxing process. And again, it varies depending on the severity of sugar addiction or sugar need from person to person. Okay. You can go through a detox, no different than trying to, give up caffeine or coffee. You need to do basically a sugar detoxing or sugar removing type of a cleanse that removes that excess from your system, cleans it out, not to mention soothes your gut and starts to put the right stuff back into your gut. There's no specific amount of time. So if you ask me how long will this take, I have no idea. If you're used to added sugar on a daily basis, maybe you drink a Coke every day or you have your daily cookie in the afternoon, whatever it is, it might be worse. And if you don't have a lot of added sugars in your diet, it may not be much at all. Okay. It can take 3 days, 5 days, maybe a month. Okay. To clean up and reset your system. So anything you do like this, approach it with grace, patience, and confidence. One of the ways you can do this is through a clean eating whole food. I like the term whole food instead of clean eating. Whole food diet that gives you good food, solid nutrition, dense nutrition and vitamins, so that as you're going through that purifying process, you're giving your body so many good vitamins and nutrients that it helps to offset that. Okay. And then once you go through this process, you can then move into more of a healthy diet where the treats, right, they become the exception rather than the rule. And then your body is more apt to be a little bit more balanced moving forward. Okay. Now, I also wanted to say, with that, there's also something else that can happen. It's common, more in like a gut cleanse program, but no different if you're doing a sugar detox. Let me just, I'm getting like some sun right in my eyes here. There is also something called die-off. So don't be surprised if your guts go through some issues. And if anyone has ever done a sugar cleanse or sugar detox before, by all means, type in the comments, yes, I have. What kind of things did you experience? Maybe headaches, maybe even sweats, maybe shakes, maybe you had weird sleeps, cravings, right? Maybe the mental obsession took over later in the day. So again, really giving your body healthy, whole nutrition can really support this. And that's what we're going to be doing starting Monday through the 30-day program that I'm going to offer, complete with recipes. So you don't have to wonder what to do. It's all going to be there for you. But the other thing is die-off. So our guts can do weird things as it cleanses too. So don't be surprised if you're like on the toilet a lot. You're putting healthier food, notably the fiber, which is going to replace the sugar or the quick, more processed foods, right? And then you can have what's called that as things come out of you and basically are flushed out of you. Okay. It's like pooping a lot, changes in poop, get used to poop. Nothing wrong with poop. We need really good, healthy poops. Good sign of your overall health. So keep an eye on your poop, literally and figuratively. And so that die-off can be part of it. Okay. So again, if you've ever gone through it, you might realize this can last 2 days, can last 3, it can last a week, can last longer, depending on what is going on in your unique microbiome. Okay. And your microbiome, of course, is the connection with your gut, your brain. So everything that's happening there is going to be very specific to your unique physiology and past experience. Side effects of getting sugar out of your life, okay, that you don't even know you have until you take it out, okay, so that you're prepared, can be headaches, okay, headaches from the lack of stimulation and sugar. We get used to something when we take it away. Again, our body goes through that detox process, just like coffee. So one way you can deal with headaches, there are natural methods like deep breathing, one nostril breathing, meditation, sniffing or having some very clean essential oils around you to help support your health, drinking lots of plain water or even like natural food infused waters. Okay. That can help you get over the effects of that detox, so to speak. And those headaches might last for a few days, several days, or weeks, depending on how long your sugar addiction has lasted. And again, you might not even realize, most people don't realize the effect what they're doing or have been doing has had on their health until they do something different and then think, wow, I thought I slept good before, but I had no idea what it was really like to sleep good. Okay, so be prepared for some of those good things. All right. Now let's talk about some tips for getting through sugar cravings. I just mentioned a couple of them, but we're going to talk about alternatives. So sugar cravings are hands down probably the hardest part of starting a healthier lifestyle. Also probably why so many people hesitate, because as soon as I say, I don't want you to eat sugar, if your first thought is, I can't do this, that's a really big sign. All right. Be gentle with yourself and recognize your truth. So it's especially true if we're dealing with sugar addiction related to hidden sugars in foods or high levels of sugar in your daily diet. You may think it's a healthy food, but upon reading the labels or looking at the added sugars, might not be as healthy as you thought. Nothing replaces whole foods, my friends. Nothing. Okay. Using what Mother Nature is giving us. In fact, sugar cravings can lead you to going off your diet plan and to completely derail from your health goals. So here are some things you can use. You can have an alternative. Okay, so for example, if late at night you find yourself, obsessing and craving about the cookies in the cupboard, well, number one, you just take them out, remove remove it so you can't think about it, or you have an alternative. For example, frozen bananas with little dots of nut butter on them. You can take them out of the freezer, suck on them, let them melt in your mouth. You get the nice protein and the thick sort of fat of the nut butter with the yummy, almost ice cream taste of melting banana. Or you can do like frozen grapes or whatever. Okay, some of things like that, or make protein balls. All right. So have an alternative. So have a plan, and we'll have a plan when we start this next week. Smell instead of tasting. Okay, so smell. Grab yourself a really delicious essential oil. I'll just pretend, right? Just take off the cap. Maybe have some like yummy vanilla or something. You just, right? Don't knock it till you try it. Trick your brain. Smell it and see what that does to those cravings. Okay. Drink infused water. So, if you've ever been to the Chopped Leaf here, I love the Chopped Leaf, and they have like the water with like the cucumber and stuff. Delicious. Throw some stuff into your water, infuse it, sip it. Yum, right? When you think you're craving the sugar, start with a glass of water. Start by sniffing an essential oil. Have an alternative. It's really bad. But again, if you're combating that with really whole, nutritiously dense, supportive foods and getting enough fat, getting enough of the right carbohydrates from your vegetables and complex veggie carb sources, and enough protein, chances are you'll knock your socks off by how even just that helps your body crave sugar less. All right. So there you go. Some tips for that. So I'm going to wrap it up here. I just wanted to know, so if you are ready to break your sugar addiction, I think a couple of you are still here. So before I do this, I'm going to stop sharing this. I'm just going to throw back up, my friends, this sugar addiction checklist. Okay. I'm going to throw this back up here. And one more time before we finish this presentation, take a look at this sugar addiction checklist. Check as many as apply to you. Do you have a tough time saying no to sweets and desserts? Do you experience cravings even when you try to cut down your sugar intake or carbs? Do you think about sugary foods during the day or evening, night? When you start to eat sweets, do you find it difficult to stop? No off switch. You get a rush of energy after eating sweets, but you crash and feel hungry pretty quickly after, regardless? Do you often feel guilt or shame after eating sugary treats, sweets? Do you reward yourself with sugary foods, sugary treats, donuts, cupcakes, drinks, wine included? Do you overeat sugary foods when you're stressed? Do you have memories of feeling loved or cared for that are connected with sweets as a reward, as special occasions, as love? Do you have memories of that? Do you see it? Does it seem like you can't get enough sugar when you start eating sweets and crave more? So how many of those can you relate to? Be honest. It could be very fluid, could change, up maybe lately you've answered yes to a lot of them, maybe not. 3 or more of those mean it's definitely time to look at some excess sugar issues and take steps. All right, ladies. And if you're approaching or over 40, as I do specialize in perimenopause, I would implore you to look honestly at this now because of so many of the negative, dangerous effects of excess sugar. Again, inflammation, metabolic syndrome issues, what have you, lack of sleep, lack of energy, hypertension, leaves you more susceptible to communicable disease. I can never say that. Communicable disease, and so much more. It's in our best interest to really look at that 24 grams or less and start getting serious, okay, about it. So let me stop sharing that and go back. And we'll go back to the presentation here so I can tell you what's coming up. Share my screen. So with all that said, let's talk. If you're ready to break your own sugar addiction, or you are concerned in any way that you don't know what to do, that you've tried it and it hasn't worked, believe me, when you're approaching over 40, you need a new plan. And so doing what used to work no longer might work. All right. And that's why I'm here for you, ladies. So if you want to talk about a one-on-one plan to support you personally, not your neighbor, not your sister, not your mom, because they're different than you, what supports you, or you want maybe a plan to support you through it and guide you through it, you want calls to talk through things, I'm here for you. Now, beyond that, if you're looking for something right now, you want to start making quick changes, quick wins, and getting that needle moving, you want to do it in a supportive group. Starting on Monday, guys, my Breaking Sugar Addiction event. We've just had Valentine's Day, maybe a lot of treats where we've rewarded ourselves or eaten all the stuff because Valentine's Day, we think sugary foods. If that's the case, if you answered more than 3 yeses to those quiz questions, invest in the Breaking Sugar Addiction event. It starts on Monday. Okay, I'll post the details after this, but I have an early bird rate. It's only available today. Okay, hoping you guys read through this, watch it on the replay, understand, ask yourself if you need to do this, if you want better energy, if you want better sleep, if you want those stubborn pounds to start moving, if you want to avoid insulin resistance, if you're concerned with visceral fat, the dangerous kind, okay? If you want to achieve those health and fitness goals that seem to be eluding you, okay? No matter what you do, this is a great start. Let's reset the gut, reset the brain connection, reset your body, put in some good foods. Early bird rate expires at midnight tonight, and then it goes up to 97, guys. You're going to get a private group, daily tips, guidance, and information for 30 days. Daily tips and information. You're going to have my sugar-free recipe guide that you can keep forever. I'm going to give you the sugar report, a multi-page document, which basically covers what we talked about today, but a little more detail. You're also going to get 4 weeks of suggested meal plans that are done for you. Okay. Takes out the guesswork, follow it, experience the incredible benefits that you will if you do it. Okay. Reach out if you're interested. I'll post the details, or say, yes, I'm interested, and I'll get that information out to you. This is always, 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 for 20 years now when I've been doing sugar detox programs, the best way. So thank you guys for watching. I'm going to stop sharing the screen. Again, if you do have any questions about any of the information I covered today in the presentation, if you are interested in the Breaking Sugar Addiction program that starts Monday, all you need to do is let me know. I'll send you the information. You get yourself started. We start. Okay. What's that saying? We ride Monday morning, ladies. Okay. A healthier, happier, less sugar addicted you is, like, I don't know, less than a week away. Okay. All right. So thank you for watching, guys. Have a really, really good day. And I'll see you next Wednesday for another live Wednesday webinar for women only. Bye.